Now, interest in socially responsible investing skyrocketed during the COVID-19 pandemic, and our next guest will tell us why women are and should be leading the charge. Maoi Arroyo, founder of Ignite Impact Fund. Thank you so much for joining us, Maoi. Hi, good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so Maoi, could you give us a sense, talk to us a little bit about the size of your fund, the performance over the last few years, and what's your focus been like?
So impact investing is a brand new asset class. It's about not just making money, but making your money more meaningful, making your money more aligned with your values and more helpful to our community. So we look to invest for an early stage venture capital firm with at this point $500,000 assets under management. So we're still fundraising. We're looking to invest in companies that actually profit with a purpose to give you a return. So CN impact investment funds tend to go give you a return between 3 to 4x your money back, and tend to help people come out of poverty and protect the planet.
And so far, could you give us a sense of what sort of companies you've invested in and whether they've given you that kind of returns?
So far, since we've deployed the money that we've had an investment in BioPrime, which is a sort of a soil conditioner. It's organic fertilizer, which actually decreases the amount of inorganic fertilizer by 50%. So that helps increase farmer yields. It's also really important now with the fertilizer crisis, because just as oil is getting expensive, obviously urea has also spiked 66%. And that means bad news for our smallholder farmers. So we've definitely had people, BA, for example, wanting to order, and private suppliers or wanting to order enough for the planting season upcoming. So that's going to be a multi-million peso deal for one of our companies.
Wow. Okay. And I know that you guys are taking a special interest in gender equality. I know that in one of your speeches, I think it was the American Chamber of Commerce conference, you said, and I quote, "Gender equality actually translates to money. You would actually have a GDP increase if gender equality was achieved." And you cited some numbers. You say you'd have a 2% increase in the UK, a 9% increase in Japan, a 27% increase in India, and a $5.3 trillion increase all over the world. Would you have numbers how much increase we could see if that happened here in the Philippines?
Certainly, because the number of women-led funds, and that's across not just private equity, but also public equity, are about 22%, and 25% of women run startups in this country, despite the fact that 80% in creative industries, 78% in food, beverage and service, 60% in manufacturing, are all women-led enterprises. So it's about time that women invest in other women and that the men get on board as well, right? Because it's really a deeply undervalued asset. And honestly, girls just want to have funds. We just want to have funds to have the money to grow our businesses, and that makes a decent return. If 50% of the country is undervalued, that sounds like good money to me.
Would you say, Maoi, that women in general are more willing to accept higher risk or lower return from investments in companies that have positive impacts on the world? Is that the mindset?
I think it's not so much you have to remember that we are now in the greatest wealth transfer in history all over the world, from OMGs, old mainstream guys, to women and millennials, right? And more people are wanting to bring responsible investing or sustainable investing from CSR into the boardroom, right? And so do they want to make a return? Absolutely. You have to make a return because a bankrupt firm serves no one. But at the same time, you don't have to do that by hurting the environment. You can do that in a socially inclusive and environmentally sustainable way.
ESG certainly in vogue these days. We're in the middle of a pandemic still, 2 years in. Do you think, Maoi, that the pandemic made or broke the startup ecosystem? Did the last 2 years create even more companies for impact investors like you guys to choose from? Have the themes changed because of this pandemic? I know you're into biotech as well.
Yes. So in certain areas, like in tech, right, because everybody suddenly had to go mobile and we couldn't do face to face, that actually helped the startup ecosystem. But at the same time, in terms of investment into companies, of course, people were risk averse. They wanted to hang on to their liquidity, so that there was a crunch there. But I think that the startup ecosystem's very much looking up. And I think the pandemic created for socially responsible investing the onus to actually to invest more, for the simple reason that in a pandemic, you realize that no one is safe until everybody else is safe. So actually creating jobs and providing homes for people to quarantine in and clean water to wash their hands, right? This investing in the poor or with the poor actually means safety for you and your family.
Investing in the poor and with the poor. That sounds good. That sounds like it makes a lot of sense. Before we end with a big picture, I wanted to know, what's the success rate these days? When you invest, what's the percentage of companies you invest in actually succeed?
Well, that's an interesting question because we're very patient capital. I mean, we invest in things that are not trends, like providing clean water, right? Renewable energy for electricity and making that affordable. So in a way, you have a consistent revenue stream, right? But in terms of listing on, say, the public stock exchange, it's really hard to IPO, right? More likely, you're going to see IPOs in Singapore's Catalyst, which is the small bourse that Singapore has for for companies that just want to raise $3 to $10 million, right? And then eventually you'll have more and more investors piling on. So I think as an early stage asset class, impact investing as a whole, it's going to be poised to take off in the market, and then you will see some exits within the next 5 to 7 years.
Because that leads me to my next question. How critical is it for impact investors to be working with mainstream investors? You working with the listed companies, these are the companies with the size and the ability to scale up.
Right. And that's absolutely true. We do want to work with the listed companies because they're also the ones who need the sustainability the most, which is material to their business. And they need the cost savings from the sustainability as well. And the way we would do that is to partner, and we're big on partnership because we don't do community development. Everybody has a foundation in their area that already has adopted a community. In the same way, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We will be happy to partner with Unilab or for healthcare, or MPIC for infrastructure and climate action. This is not something that will be a rising tide just for the startups. It will be a rising tide for big companies as well.
On that note, Maoi, thank you so much for joining us. Such an inspiration to all the women and the women bosses. Thank you, Maoi. Have a great week.
Thank you. Bye.